When the holidays start to feel a bit repetitive, reach for a Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry and put your twist on tradition. A bold cranberry and winter spice flavor fusion, Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry is a refreshing way to shake things up this sipping season. And only for a limited time. Sprite. Obey your thirst.
This episode is presented by State Farm. Having insurance isn't the same as having State Farm. It's like needing the protection of an offensive guard on the football field, but getting an elementary school crossing guard. Sure, they're both guards, but you can only trust one to keep your quarterback safe when the game is on the line. So don't settle for just any insurance when there's State Farm. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Here's my 30-second story with Guinness. As soon as my sister and I get home for the holidays, we don't even unpack. We head straight to our pub. The bartender already knows our order, Guinness and fries. We laugh all night, catch up with old friends, and walk home with faces sore from smiling. It's one of my favorite nights of the year. That was my 30-second story with Guinness.
Guinness Draft Stout. Please enjoy responsibly. Imported by Diageo Beer Company, USA, New York, New York.
In Walmart Sue Newville, time was ticking away. Only a few nights left till the big holiday. But last-minute gifters had no need to worry. Walmart Express Delivery got their gifts in a hurry. From Nintendo to Nespresso and Lego flowers, they could check off their lists in as fast as an hour. All of Who Newville, East, West, South, and North could order gifts up until 5 p.m. on December 24th. So this holiday, just do as the Who's do. With gift delivery this fast, they all gasped. From Walmart, who knew? Subject to availability, terms and fees apply.
This episode is brought to you by McAfee.
Yes! Playoff tickets! Just need to click here and... Wait, what? Fake site? Good thing McAfee threw the red flag. That would have been $400 gone.
McAfee blocks risky sites so you don't pay for seats and other things that don't exist. Plans start at just $39.99 for your first year. That's cheaper than parking on game day. Learn more at McAfee.com/online protection.
American soccer fans, welcome to episode 166 of the USA Soccer Cast. We're bringing you everything about the U.S. national teams, the players, the leagues, and everything else that impacts the game of soccer in these United States. I'm Donald Wine. It's Tuesday, December 9th, and we are just a few days removed from the World Cup draw that took place last Friday right here in Washington, D.C. at the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. I was at the building. I wasn't inside the hall. I was in the media center, but I was present at the World Cup draw as everything about that circus took place. We'll talk more about the circus in a little bit. Unlike the draw, we are going to start with the actual draw and how it transpired and who ends up in which group for the 2026 World Cup, which of course kicks off on June 11th at Estadio Azteca in Mexico City. I want to start, obviously, go out of order here. We're going to start with Group D because that is where the United States was pre-drawn into. The U.S. drawing Paraguay, Australia, and the winner of UEFA Playoff C, which could be Turkey, Slovakia, Romania, or Kosovo. We're going to break down that group after the break, but I wanted to start with that because, of course, most of you on here are U.S. fans and you want to know who the U.S. will be playing. Of course, the U.S. will open up the World Cup on June 12th at SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles against Paraguay. They then will play Australia in Seattle on June 19th. And then they'll finish up with that Playoff C winner on June 25th back in LA. That'll be your group stage for the United States. Let's get into the other groups. There are 11 other groups. Several other teams that had heard their names called in this World Cup draw. We'll start with Group A. Mexico co-hosts will have South Africa, South Korea, and the winner of UEFA Playoff D as in Delta. That playoff being Denmark, Czechia, Ireland, and North Macedonia. Group B is the other co-host, Canada. Canada will open up against the UEFA Playoff A winner, which will be either Italy, Wales, Northern Ireland, or Bosnia and Herzegovina. They also have Qatar and Switzerland in their group. Group C is Brazil, Morocco, Haiti, and Scotland. That'll be an interesting group right there. Group E is Germany, Curacao, Ivory Coast, and Ecuador. Moving on to Group F, we have the Netherlands, Japan, the winner of UEFA Playoff B, which is Ukraine, Poland, Sweden, or Albania. And then finally, you have Tunisia in that group. Group G, G as in golf, we have Belgium, Egypt, Iran, and New Zealand. We have Group H, which is Spain, Cabo Verde, Saudi Arabia, and Uruguay. We have Group I, which is France, Senegal, the FIFA Playoff Path 2 winner, which is either Iraq, Bolivia, or Suriname. And then, of course, you have Norway to wrap up that group. Group J is Argentina, Algeria, Austria, and Jordan. The 3 A's and a J. Group K is Portugal. You have the FIFA Playoff Path 1 winner, which is either DR Congo, Jamaica, or New Caledonia. You also have Uzbekistan and Colombia in that group. That could be very interesting as well. And finally, Group L, England, Croatia, Ghana, and Panama. I started with the draw because I say as we get into the circus that was this World Cup draw, it took 85 minutes for us to get to the main meat of the draw, beyond the 3 teams that we already knew had been pre-drawn, the 3 co-hosts, Mexico, United States, and Canada. We already knew what groups they were going to be in. We knew what slot we were going to be put in. But it took 85 minutes to hear the rest of the names being called. And that was a long, long burn. There was some songs, there were some musical performances, which, hey, they got Lauryn Hill to show up on time for a concert. FIFA might have something in the hole that we don't, but that's the first concert she showed up to on time in decades. But she was there. Andrea Bocelli opens up the draw as only he does, with just absolute passion and just made the event feel like we were about to get into something special. Unfortunately, that was probably the best part of that ceremony. We had the FIFA Peace Prize thing that I'm not even going to talk much about that. That was just asinine that we had to go through that we had to see that and deal with it. That there was so much time spent up on having the president on stage. This was not about him. This was not about Infantino. This was not even about FIFA. These were about the teams who have worked their tails off to get to this point, to hear their country name be called, and to figure out who they would be playing in this World Cup. There were several teams here who had never heard their name called at a World Cup draw, and were waiting that long to hear their name called. And 85 minutes was for the start of pot 1 outside of the co-hosts. So they still had to wait even longer than that to get to the pot 4 teams that had been waiting, for what felt like 2 hours to get to the point where they could hear their name and know where they're going to be called, or what teams they were going to be playing. The match schedule, they had to wait an extra day for that. So the match schedule came out on Saturday, and the full match schedule now is up on FIFA.com. You can go check all that out to see where all these teams are playing. Obviously, the United States knew, and the teams that the United States would be playing, they knew where they would be playing, but everyone else found out what cities they were drawing on Saturday. And so there was that kind of weirdness where you kind of knew, you didn't know where these teams are going to play. Another thing that was kind of interesting is that if you saw the match schedule prior to the World Cup draw, usually you would see on the match schedule, hey, for example, in New York, New Jersey on June 15th, you have A1 versus A4. B1 versus B3 is going to be on June 19th in Seattle. You had those kind of things. But in this match schedule, you just had Group E for a match, for a location and a date. You didn't know who was playing who. But they knew on the draw stage, because as they were drawing, usually you figure out where these teams are being slotted into. After the seeded teams, which go into slot 1 in each group, whether they go in B2, B3, slot 2, slot 3, or slot 4. The fact that they knew where all these teams were being slotted into, but we didn't, seemed weird. And again, this is something that is normally drawn. For example, in Group D, if Paraguay was drawn, if Australia was drawn out of pot 2, they would then pull out another number to see, okay, are they going to be in D2, D3, or D4? We obviously already knew where they were going to be slotted because that had already been predetermined. But for Group C, which had not been predetermined, usually you still knew that Brazil as a seeded group would face the second slot in the first match, the third slot in the second match, and the fourth slot in the third match. That didn't happen. But on stage, they knew where all these teams were going to be slotted into as they were drawn. So it's weird that they didn't tell the rest of us that ahead of time so that we could start piecing these together. It made for kind of a really weird draw in that regard. Now, all the circus aside, I think there were some pretty interesting groups here that are being drawn. We have all 6 months to kind of dive into which groups are going to be the groups of death, which there really isn't one. There are a couple stronger groups. Germany has a tough draw. Brazil, Group C, I think is arguably the toughest draw right now. England has a pretty decent one. I know Croatia has fallen off slightly, but they're still a very solid team. And you have some of these groups like Portugal, whoever comes out of that interconfederation playoff sure could maybe bump things up a bit, but Portugal and Colombia, that's going to be a great match. France has Senegal and Norway in their group and potentially in Iraq in their group. That is a very, very interesting one. Netherlands or Japan will be a very good match to open up that group. So there are some definite matchups here, and obviously there's some matchups that people may not care about as much, but I think also a lot of the 6 playoffs that have yet to be determined could really change the dynamic of this tournament's group stage. If Turkey makes it, if Italy makes it and gets into that opener against Canada, that would be interesting. So there are some teams that are still waiting in the wings here that could really affect how this group stage will go. I want to pause right here. We're going to come back and talk about Group D specifically. We got some comments from Tyler Adams, from Mauricio Pochettino, from Tim Ream, Chris Richards, and we'll just overall very quickly break down the group for the United States. So we'll be right back.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
While the Who's of Whoville were laughing and eating, the Grinch from his lair sought to wreak havoc on their season. He thought, how do I ruin their holiday meals? A plan sprang to mind, which he enacted with zeal. Dill pickle seasoning on fries will make for a green surprise, and I know they'll be shocked with these loathsome odd socks. So if you want to experience the Grinch's mischievous meal, head to McDonald's and show him how you really feel. The new Grinch meal, now at McDonald's. At participating McDonald's while supplies last. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Oh, Hilton stay, your beds are soft and cozy. No lumpy couch, no stiff futon, no shower line at crack of dawn. Oh, Hilton stay.
When you want holiday comfort you can count on, it matters where you stay. Enjoy comfortable rooms and friendly service when you stay with Hilton instead. Save up to 25% this season when you book with Hilton. Hilton for the stay. Terms apply.
This podcast is brought to you by Carvana. Carvana lets you buy your next car on your terms. Explore a massive inventory online, filter for what matters, and find your perfect match. Then choose delivery to your home or pick it up at one of Carvana's iconic car vending machines. Every car also comes with a 7-day money-back guarantee, so you can make sure it's the right fit. Buy your car on Carvana. Delivery or pickup fees may apply. Limitations and exclusions may apply. See our 7-day return policy at Carvana.com.
Carvana.
Hey everyone, are you looking for the latest gear for your U.S. national teams, Major League Soccer, the NWSL, or any other team in the world of soccer? The USA SoccerCast has affiliate partnerships that are ready to help you out. Head to linktree.com/USA SoccerCast, where we have links to Homage, Fanatics, the MLS store, and Breaking Team. You can get the jersey, shirt, hat, or accessory you're looking for to support your team, while also saving some money and helping this show in the process. Again, linktree.com/USA SoccerCast. Click on the links and get your gear. And we thank you as always for your support of the show. All right, we are back, and we return by kind of breaking down and zeroing in on Group D, which is, of course, the group for the United States. The United States, as I mentioned, drawing Paraguay, Australia, and then the winner of UEFA Playoff C, which is either Turkey, Slovakia, Romania, or Kosovo. Funny enough, as this draw was taking place, before, I think, and I mentioned this on the show, this was something where we obviously had all of our different takes on what would be the most ideal group for the United States and what would be the worst draw. And if you think about where they landed, it was pretty favorable for the United States. And they get their first two opponents in Australia and Paraguay are two teams they've seen in the last couple of months. And even if Turkey, which is the strongest team in this UEFA playoff, if they get out of that to enter this group, they have seen them in June. So in the past 6 months, they would have seen potentially all three of their opponents, which is funny that people were paying $3,000 for tickets to a game they could have paid probably $45 to see a month ago. But that's for another day. I think as you look at this group, Australia was a team that I said, hey, this is the weakest team in pot 2. And Paraguay was a team that we've seen and we know we can play. And if we were able to get away with just having one UEFA team, that would be ideal. And it's funny, I mentioned this on Stars and Stripes FC. There's only been 2 instances all time before this group was formed that the United States did not have to face 2 UEFA teams in the group stage. That was 1934, where there was no group stage. It was just a straight bracket, and we lost to Italy in the first round. And in 1930, where we only had one UEFA team in our group. We've had 2, and in the case of 1990, 3 UEFA teams in each of the groups that we have been in at this World Cup until 2026. So the fact that we only drew a UEFA playoff winner, I think, is very favorable, because I thought there were some strong European teams that we could draw that we were able to avoid. The fact that we got Australia, which is, the lowest ranked team in pot 2, I think is great. And we've seen them before. Paraguay, we've seen before. Turkey, we've seen before. And even if Turkey doesn't make it, Slovakia, Romania, Kosovo, all very decent teams, but all winnable games, especially for that final game of the group stage where things could matter, where it could be a difference between winning the group, finishing second, or even getting enough points to finish in third, which would be, still put you on a path to get into the knockout stage. I had a chance to be on the press availability for Tyler Adams, Christian Pulisic, Tim Ream, Chris Richards, and Mauricio Pochettino, which took place after the World Cup draw. And I want to start with some audio from Tyler Adams, because, again, in facing Paraguay and Australia in their first 2 matches, these are 2 teams they've seen before. And I asked them how that might affect their preparation, knowing it's a team that they're familiar with. So here's what Tyler had to say. Thank you, Donald Wine, Stars and Stripes FC. Tyler, thanks for your time today. I wanted to ask about the 3 teams, or at least the 2 teams that you've seen most recently, Australia and Paraguay. Now that you know they're in the World Cup group, how does that maybe affect your preparation as a team for those matches?
Yeah, no, I think it's really exciting overall. I wasn't in the past 2 windows, so I haven't had the opportunity to play against Australia, but had the opportunity to play against Paraguay earlier on in my national team career. But I think it's exciting to be familiar with the opponents that we're going to play against. But I think everyone knows that nothing is like a World Cup game, and having the experience now in Qatar, yeah, we know that teams can bring a completely different profile and opportunity to play.
So Tyler is kind of in the same mind frame as this. It's the World Cup is different, and yeah, sure, this team will be familiar. They'll be familiar with the style of play that Paraguay and Australia and even Turkey have, if Turkey makes it. They have some direct experience with how to play them. But those guys that they saw on the field may not be all the guys that they see when they play in the World Cup. Same for Paraguay and Australia and Turkey if they face us. Everyone they saw on that field when we played is not going to be on this team for the World Cup for the United States. There'll be different guys. The stakes obviously are much higher, and it's great that they are approaching it of, yeah, sure, we face these teams and we're familiar with them, and it's nice to have that familiarity, but these are 3 new games, and we need to prepare for these 3 new games in a different way. And we need to focus on one at a time and come out of these games understanding that we have to respect that this team will be better than the team that we saw in October and November. I now want to move on to what Mauricio Pochettino had to say, because as we all think about some of these scenarios about getting out of the group and maybe how favorable it could be for the United States that they're in Group D with these 3 teams, there's the general notion that, yeah, sure, it's easy to look ahead and say, okay, after we get out of the group, if we're in first, if we're in second, who could we see? What teams could we play? What paths would we take? And for ticket purposes, I know we've already been doing that. It's not necessarily, looking past these opponents, but saying, hey, look, we want to prepare as if we're going to win this thing. Pochettino has said the goal has been to win this World Cup. It's not just to do well. It's to win this World Cup. And he says if any coach thinks that it's just okay to just be decent and get out of the group and just say that's a good job, then they're not coaching. He demands that we focus our eyes on the prize of winning this World Cup. And to do that, you have to go 1 game at a time. So I asked him very directly, like, hey, it's easy to dream, but did you allow yourself to do that? Or are you just focusing on the group stage? Here's what he had to say.
Thank you. Hey, Mauricio, Donald Wine, Stars and Stripes FC. I know the focus is on the group stage right now, but FIFA has done a draw for all 48 teams in the 6 that'll be coming in later. Did you allow yourself to kind of think beyond the group stage and potential opponents that you might see on your way to a World Cup?
We were talking in the car, in the way that from the center, Kennedy Center to here, and we need to be focused in the group stage. We cannot think more than this. We cannot spend energy, in after. Our full energy now in what we are going to do and our first game need to be. And after the first, the second, and the third. And be sure that we go through to the next stage. I think because it's true that if you are Argentina and you are maybe today the best team and you are the last winner of the World Cup, maybe you can think a little bit to say, okay, that is the group stage. After, what is going to happen after? And maybe you allowed yourself to think. But with USA, we need to. Our first game is the final of the World Cup, and the second need to be the final of the World Cup, and the third too. We need to only to think that after the first game is not another opportunity. That is why that mentality that we want to build, that mindset that we were talking before, that we need to settle and be strong in this.
Okay, so Poch said it, and I actually like the part of his answer where he said that opening game of the World Cup against Paraguay in LA on June 12th is a World Cup final to them. And then the next game is a World Cup final to them, and they have to approach it that way. And he compared us to Argentina and said, yeah, Argentina may be able to think beyond the group stage and think past and think about, dreams bigger than the group stage. But he said the United States has to focus on one game at a time and treat every game as if it's a World Cup final. Because if they don't win that game, they won't have a chance to get to the World Cup final. And I'm cool with that. I'm cool with that mentality and that approach to these games. And it's, again, he said he even, he talked a little bit about it. He said he mentioned in the car ride over, yeah, they talked a little bit about beyond the group stage, who they could face and how that might shape up. But focus on the group stage, get from there, and then you can kind of see, where the chips fall, because with 48 teams and 32 of them making it to the next round, there are going to be some surprises. And that round of 32 game may not be who you think is going to be. That round of 16 game may not be who you think is going to be. There's going to be an upset here or there. And I think that's where this tournament seems so exciting now that we know who the groups are. The final thing that we can talk about is what's next for this team. They're off until March. There's no January camp games, so there's no opportunity for the Major League Soccer players to come in and train or play and again, get that get their feet under them for a very pivotal 2026. March is the last window that all these players have to impress Mauricio Pochettino before he names that World Cup roster in May. And then they go with 2 friendlies against someone to be determined in Charlotte, and they'll have the send-off against Germany on June 6th in Chicago. When they are facing Belgium and Portugal in Atlanta in March, how do you be a part of that team? Because most people feel that if you're a part of that team, save for maybe an injury or two, you're very close to being on this roster. You're on the final short list. And so how do you prepare for that? How do you continue to perform and get ready for that? Tim Ream and Chris Richards were on the media availability at the same time. And I asked them this question mainly because, Tim had responded with an answer previously that said, hey, most people are talking to us as if we've made the team. No one's made the team yet. We still have to perform and we still have to make the World Cup roster. So I said, okay, what's next for you being in Major League Soccer and you're out of season? Chris Richards with Crystal Palace is still in season. So they kind of have different pathways here as to how they would prepare for that final push to make the World Cup roster. So here's what they had to say about what's next for them and how to earn one of those spots.
Mine is I've already started my off-season program. Took 10 days off after November camp, and I'm right back to it. I saw that Diego said that this is the biggest off-season of his career, and I would echo that sentiment. This is I've been playing for 16 years. I'm going into my 17th, and my 17th off season is the biggest of my career, without a doubt. And you have to still be able to push yourself to go out and work out and do the things and make sure that you're flying and ready to go and ready to play 90 minutes as soon as preseason starts. And I think that's the ultimate goal for myself. Even being an old guy who everyone says, oh, you need to take rest. Listen, I played 45 games this year between club and country. I can rest when I retire, and right now is not the time.
Yeah, I'm still in season, so nothing's really changing for me. It's just making sure that whenever I have my off days, making sure that I'm really taking them off. And whenever I have time for recovery, I'm really doing that. But playing wise, it's just doing the things that got me to the national team at the first place. It's not doing anything special, not trying to dribble the whole team. Then that's not why Poch has me there. It's just making sure that I continue to stay solid, and again, do the things that got me there. And then whenever I am back in camp, just making sure that I continue to not just be a good person on the field, but also be a good person off of it, and be this leader in this kind of group that I think that everybody looks to for guidance and acceptance. guidance and for help and advice.
So for Tim Ream, he said he's already back in training, and I think that's great. And I didn't expect anything less from Tim Ream. He's always been methodical with his approach to the game and with his training and his prep. That's how he's been able to be in the game for 17 years now. And the fact that he's considering this his most important offseason and treating it as such means that he knows that like not even he is guaranteed a spot on this roster. And I think up and down the board, everyone has to kind of figure that, yeah, we may hear about the guys who we think are locks, but nobody's a lock. Anything can happen between now and when the roster is named in May, and they have to perform every week as if Pochettino's watching and he's making his final cuts. That's how you got to approach it. And Chris Richards has that opportunity every single week with Crystal Palace to continue to perform, continue to elevate his game. And once MLS starts back up in February with competitive matches, Tim Ream and the guys that are MLS based are going to have the same opportunity. So it's very important for all of these guys to approach the next few months as opportunities for them to get better and to show that improvement tangibly, and know that no matter what they're doing, Pochettino and the coaching staff are probably watching, and they're probably taking that all in because that's all the information they have to gather. And if they can get on that March roster, that will be a great indication of who could make the final roster again, save for an injury or two. So as we move forward, there's going to be a ton more content, obviously, about the World Cup, about our group. I'm hoping down the line to get full deep dives into each team, talk about our history between the United States and those teams. Who could they be playing? Maybe get some guests on here. But that will do it for this episode 166 of the USA Soccer Cast. Thank you for listening. Remember, you can find us on Blue Sky, Twitter, and YouTube. Follow us on all of these sites at USA Soccer Cast. Subscribe, rate, review our shows. It helps us get in front of new people and is greatly appreciated. Tell your friends about us. Finally, head to linktree.com/USA Soccercast to check out our affiliate links and our stimulus store. We have everything you need to watch the beautiful game and follow your teams, and using these links also helps support the show. We'll talk to you again soon, y'all. Peace.